What's up and welcome to the Fantasy League Show. My name is Mitch and I'm going to be walking you through the top fantasy ADCs of the week for your LCS and LEC combined leagues. Let's get into this tier list. What you have on your screen right now is the S, A, and B rankings completely unfilled. I went ahead and filled in C and D. I'll touch upon why I think some of those players are in those buckets, but we're really going to focus on S, A, and B because I want you to know who you want to start, who you want to sit, and who are just some of the best players that you might actually have on your team, or unfortunately maybe your opponents have them. So maybe I'll talk them down and then you can send them the video. But let's get right into it. So the first person that we're going to be talking about is Deftly, and I know that what you see on your screen is the week-by-week projections box. This is going to show you, and I'll work on this from left to right, Deftly's average fantasy points per game. So what this means is he's getting about 28 points per game. Double that. That is the output that he's producing per week. I'm not going to double it for you. You will never see me doing mental math on this stream ever. They're just not going to do it in front of you. Opponent 1 is 100 Thieves. 2 is Immortals, 3 is Dignitas, and I'm going to tell you what those corresponding numbers are. So, 100 Thieves, on average, is giving up 26.29 points to the ADC position. So, every ADC that has played 100 Thieves has racked up all of these points, average all of those points, and that is that number right there. So, Huhi and FBI and the rest of 100 Thieves are dying enough and killing that other ADC to give them that output of 26.29, right? So let's talk about that in the context of where I ranked Deftly. Deftly is going to sit quite comfortably in our B tier, and I will say that B kind of means they're a flex consideration. Depending on whether you're in an 8-man or a 10-man league, flex might mean two different things. If you're in an 8-man league, definitely a flex, and you might even consider benching some of these people depending on the availability of other players on your roster. Okay, so let's talk about Deftly specifically. EG, very strong team. What you will need to know is that 100 Thieves and Dignitas are also very strong teams, also have very strong bot lanes. Huhi and FBI in particular, I'm a little bit more afraid of. But what I do want to mention here is that even though 100 Thieves is very strong, and so is their bot lane, they're giving up about 26 points on average to the ADC position. That's one of the higher amounts. What that really means to me is that their games are going long. They're not always winning the games in the beginning, and they don't always necessarily close out the games. What that means is that they're skirmishing a lot. Maybe they're losing and the other team's getting one or two team fights in that they win. And 100 Thieves, we know they're a strong team. We know they have a positive record. They're ending up winning those games, but not without giving up a lot of fantasy points first. Keep your eye on that right there. Dignitas, other end of the spectrum. They don't give up a lot of fantasy points. They give up a very low amount, 23 points on average. To sum it up, Immortals and Dig, I think that EG could beat both of those teams. Immortals has a track record of beating all of the teams they shouldn't beat, and if you think that EG is one of those teams, then who knows? But I think this is going to be a strong week for Deftly overall. I think that he's going to have a good week against some of these bot lanes, despite them being pretty tough. I'm going to put him in B. Let's jump into Kabi. And the thing that I absolutely love talking about for all of these Misfits players, and let me throw Kabi into the B tier. What I love about the Misfits players is that their standard deviation is so high. And what that quite simply means is that their propensity to score a lot more points than their average, or a lot less points than their average, is really high. It's really great. So Kabi is scoring about 25 points on average. However, his standard deviation is 9.64 points. So that means he can bump up his average points per game by 9 or shoot it down by 9 too. Kabi, I'm putting in the B tier because he's playing Astralis and he's playing G2. One is a great team, one is a not so great team. One is an excellent bot lane, one has a not so excellent bot lane. What that screams to me is that Kabi can crush that first game. And the thing that Misfits loves to do is, even when they play against G2, they play really bloody games. They kill a lot and they fight a lot, and maybe they get caught a lot. Kabi can be your boomer bust player. If he turns out to have a decent game against G2, this is going to be a great week. But the reason why I have him in B is because he is boomer bust. He is your Deshaun Jackson of the fantasy football world. He is going off for 3 touchdowns and 150 yards or 2 receptions. There's no in between with this guy. So keep that in mind. If you're playing one of your harder opponents, you might want to stick him in there. He could be the extra effort that you need to actually win your week. Now, let's jump into FBI. This guy is not boomer bust. He is just boom or boom. That sounded so much better in my head. He's so strong. He's really so great. That sounded like the start of a little like cheerleading cheer. Like I'm not going to continue that. FBI is great. You're going to start him. I don't have to belabor the point here. He has a relatively challenging week with EG and TSM. Both have decent bot lanes. I like how their supports for both of those teams have actually been playing, even though Sword Art has been criticized a lot. I think that TSM has really turned it on and figured out their team identity. I think that they could give 100 Thieves a run for their money. With that said, FBI is likely to score a lot of points even in losses, as I discussed already when we were talking about Deftly. 100 Thieves goes long in games. They're bloody. They fight a lot. FBI is an awesome player. You're going to start it. Now, I'm going to take a sip of my water as you brace for the fact that I'm going to take less time to talk about this player than it will for me to take my water. All right, so mentally time how long it takes me to drink, and then that's how much time I'm going to spend on this next player. All right, radio silence. That's always good. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Upset. You're starting him. Okay, S tier. Let's move on. Upset's the man. He's so good. There's literally never a reason not to start him. He's been solid all season long. He's performed way better than his ADP. You want him in your starting lineup. And I don't know how I arranged this tier list, but the same thing is going with Sven, however. I'm putting Sven in A. He doesn't have those incredible blow-up games that these EU players have. EU plays 2 games per week, whereas NA plays 3, meaning that the NA games are getting normalized to 2 games per week. So you can take all of the NA games and all of the production, all of the fantasy output that they do, multiply that by 0.66 to normalize it to a 2-game average. And that's what the NA guys are going to do. That kind of means that if Sven gets a pentakill in one of those games, it's not weighted as strongly as if his EU counterpart, Upset, gets a pentakill in one game, right? So Sven, he's been great, but I'm going to put him in the A tier. Cloud9 has been nothing shy of awesome. They're playing Team Liquid and TSM. 2 great bot lanes, 2 great teams. Oh, I can't believe I just said that Lost in Sword Art was a great bot lane. I think they've been good, honestly. 2 great teams. I almost can even see FlyQuest putting up some sort of performance. With that said, Cloud9 can win all of these games. I just don't necessarily think it's going to be a stomp for any of them. He's in the A tier. You're still starting him. He's Sven, and you drafted him for that reason. Now let's jump into Patrick. Patrick has been kind of a tale of 2 ADCs. In the beginning of the split, he has been stunning. He has been super good, and you probably didn't even notice it, especially if you are just an LCS watcher. You probably don't even know who Patrick is. But he's been great. His average fantasy points as of right now is 21.37 points per game, which is not so strong. It's on the lower end of things. With that said, his standard deviation is even higher than Kabi's. His standard deviation is 14.3 points. That might even be the highest that we have here, meaning if Kabi was boom or bust, Patrick is an explosion or like a black hole, right? Does that make sense? 2 ends of the spectrum, right? He's an extreme version of Kabi. You're going to lock him in and you're going to get 60-something points, or you're going to lock him in and you're going to get 16 points. That's how it's going to go. He has Fnatic and Vitality. One team is stronger than the other, Fnatic being the stronger of the 2. They both give up a lot of points to the ADC. I actually really, really like this week for Patrick. I think that he could turn some heads, and if you put him in your flex spot, especially if you're in an 8-man league, you might be a little bit concerned, but he could very easily get you that 50-point week. That's why I have him at B. Granted, I have him ranked as the 12th best ADC of the week, but I honestly have a good feeling about him. I think that he's going to be the Vitality bot lane. I don't necessarily think that he's going to be the Fnatic bot lane, but I also don't think that Fnatic is going to win the game in a very clean fashion. They never seem to do that unless they're playing G2 with bad packet loss issues. So I think that Patrick is a great start. I think that he's going to have a good performance. Let's now jump into Hansam. Speaking of great starts, you might see, I hope you don't think that I have a LEC bias, but the two members of the LEC that I want to put in the S tier, Upset and Hansama. Hansama, kind of similar to Upset, like he just has excellent weeks. He has a relatively challenging week this time around. We don't know which version of Mad Lions we're going to see, but we're seeing G2. That's all we really need to know. Don't expect him to score too much, only because G2 could show up and crush Rogue, or they can play a long game. G2 played a very long game against Rogue the last time they met. What that means is that it's going to be a game filled with more CS from the ADC position. They're going to spend more time on Summoner's Rift. They're going to get into more skirmishes. They're going to maybe get a kill or an assist and run out, escape a fight. Maybe they're going to die. But the way I expect this game to play out is a very even bout from both sides for the majority of the game. I really like Hansama for this week. But if for whatever reason, if you're afraid of the G2 week, don't be, by the way. G2 gives up a pretty decent amount of points overall to the ADC position. I just want you to know that if you are a little concerned about that G2 week, then you know what you can do. You can play one of those boomer bust guys in your flex position. If you have Patrick or Kabi or some of the other ones that I'll mention in some of the other videos, then you might want to put them in your flex. But Hansama, come on, he's an S for a reason. He's been great. He's an awesome ADC, and I think he's going to do great this time. And Trimby's going to be great too. All right, let's get into Tactical. And what I want to talk about with Tactical is the fact that there is a stark contrast between what it means to produce in the perspective of fantasy and what it means to have a solid performance just as an ADC in the LCS. And if it's not clear yet, I will make it clear. So Tactical has kind of been in a little bit of a slump. Most of Team Liquid has also been in that slump, but Tactical has been giving up random solo deaths mid lane on Tristana, and he looks like kind of the weak link right now. We see some Travis Gafford interviews where Tactical's talking about how he's getting burnt out a little bit. Don't be afraid. He's still on Team Liquid. He's still the attack damage carry on Team Liquid. And what that means is that if Team Liquid is going to win games, even if Tactical doesn't look like the strongest player, again, this isn't a tier list on how good the player is, his fantasy output will be above average. He's in the A tier for a reason. I have him at 6 because of his matchups in particular. But I want to tell you that in teamfights that the team's going to win, if Team Liquid is going to win the teamfight, he's the one who is going to be right-clicking all of the champions and getting a lot of the multi-kills, right? He has the highest propensity to do that on his team. It's just the way that it's going to go. He's playing Golden Guardians, Cloud9, and CLG. 2 of those 3, in my opinion, look like very easy stomps. I think this is going to be a great bounce-back week for Tactical in terms of his actual player performance, and I think it's going to be a stellar week for fantasy output. All right. Hope that made sense. Now let's talk about Neon. Neon I'm going to put right into the B tier, and I almost feel like, let me find Neon. I always have trouble finding, there we go. Yeah, that's him. Yeah. Pink jersey, that sounds very current and up to date with FC Shock. Okay. So Neon has not been the strongest as of late. Depending on which version of FC Shulk we find this upcoming week, it could be very different. With that said, Mad Lions and Astralis, in my opinion, don't really scare me as 2 teams in the LEC, and they especially do not scare me. As a matter of fact, I welcome them for fantasy output. Mad Lions gives on average 25.7 points to the ADC position, and Astralis gives up an egregious 35.7 points to the ADC position. You can lock in Neon as your flex or primary ADC. I have him ranked at number 9. And that Astralis game, if it plays out as they usually do, could be enough points to just give you all of the output that you need for Neon, and then everything from Mad Lions is a bonus. That's not always how you want to go about things, but that is really how it could be. Astralis is the CLG of LEC, not in terms of skill, but in terms of how many points they give up to the opponent's fantasy players, right? So you're going to play a Neon. He's a good start. I have him at 9. I'm looking forward. Hopefully, FC Shock has a nice bounce back week amid a lot of the troubling things that are going on behind the scenes with some of the rumors about their actual org. I'm rooting for the team. I really hope they do well, and I think that Neon's going to have a good fantasy week. All right, we're going to do another water break as you prepare for some hard-hitting analysis on the next member of the S tier. Okay. This player's name is Reckless, and he is in the S tier. That's that. That's all I'm doing. He's so good that I actually realized I have 2 pictures for him. We could keep both of those in there, but all right, which one? What do I like more? We got to do the tattoo one. All right. He's in the S tier. He's undeniably the best ADC in the LEC. He's the one who performs the most. His average fantasy points per game is 40. Okay, I lied before. I'll do mental math. If you double that, that's 80 points per week. He's averaging 80 points per week. I know that he's playing against Rogue, which is kind of a scary matchup. Like I said before, I expect this to be a very skirmish-heavy game and a long game. Reckless on the end of a long game sounds really great to me. You know you're starting him if you have him. And if you don't know that, then I don't even know how you found this video, honestly. But yeah, start him. Coming up next is Crownshot, who, as we know, joined the LEC relatively late, at least for this split. We're putting him in B tier, and by the way, I'm not exactly showing the rankings between each individual tier, just kind of listen out for my callouts and where I rank them, but just know that whatever tier they're in, you're starting them accordingly. Crownshot, however, is rank 13. He has an interesting matchup. I kind of put him on the end of B tier. He's almost right into C tier because he's playing SK and Excel. I think that Excel, they do give up a ton of points to the ADC position, 34.6 points on average. But the interesting thing about this matchup is that Excel, I think, could beat Vitality, and I also think that SK will beat Vitality. If we're looking at an 0-2 week, despite how many points that Excel could give up, this could be challenging. Crownshot is a strong ADC. Vitality's looking a little bit better as of late. I know that they came off of a strong win against Fnatic, so who's to say that they can't beat SK or Excel or any of their bot lanes. I think that Treats has been performing incredibly well on SK. I'll talk about him a little bit later. But this could be kind of challenging for Crownshot. He's a fringe start. Put him in your flex if you want to, if you don't have a lot of better options. If you're in a 10-man league, I really encourage you to start him in your flex. If you're in 8-man, you might have a little bit of leeway here and there. But keep him in mind as we go. And definitely keep an eye out for all of these fantasy outputs as the week progresses. You want to see how they do, because you might want to trade them out if they have a week that's much better than what it should have been. We could talk about trade value a little bit later, some other time, but I'm always down to talk about the costs and values and prices and all that stuff, all the moving parts. That's all really fun to make. Trading's awesome in fantasy. All right, let's talk about the player who might actually be my darling of the LEC. He is what we call what we call in the biz. I'm not in the biz. This is a player who is known as a league winner for fantasy. What that means is that if a player was drafted sort of late in the actual draft, meaning you probably picked this guy up in the 7th round or something like that, unless you just had some strange intel. If you picked him up really late, that means you got incredible value for him. You didn't pay a lot, but you got such immeasurable product from Jezu. I have him in the A tier. I have him at the 4th best ADC of the week. He is nothing shy of fantastic, especially with Treats accompanying him in the bot lane. He's averaging about 29 points per game. He has an excellent week against Vitality and Fnatic, both really, really, really bloody teams that give up a lot of points to the ADC. I think both of their bot lanes have the propensity to give up a lot of points. I think this is a standout week for Jezu, and I'm just really looking for another awesome week for him. You know you're starting him. You've seen him. You've hit game, even if you don't recognize his face or his name, you've hit game log. You see all of those 50, 60 point weeks. Speaking of, let's round this out with Neo, shall we? Let's get into why I think that Neo is going to meet Jezu in that A tier. He's playing Golden Guardians, he's playing EG and TSM, two of which are relatively strong teams. Dignitas, however, is not so shabby themselves. I think that Neo is going to perform pretty well, particularly against TSM's bot lane. We saw how they did the last time when Spica gave up that Baron and Dragon back-to-back in a very close game. I think that Dig is actually going to perform. I think that Neo is in the A tier for a reason. He's been great. His entire team has been fantastic too. Dardak has been performing, but it's not so much about the team. Neo is playing a lot of very kill-heavy ADCs. His kill percentage is 30%, which is one of the higher amounts for ADCs, meaning that he's getting about 30% of all of Dignitas's kills. They're getting funneled into him, which is pretty strong. I'm really favorable towards Neo. I want to see Dig keep doing well. I think that he's going to have a great week. All right. That sounds good. Oh, wait, hold on. I think that I actually forgot to put Patrick in this tier, so let me just do that just for posterity. Let's get him in that B tier. As I'm looking back at my tier, I forgot to rank him. All right, this is what we have. I hope you guys are looking forward to a good week of fantasy. So this is the week that we're looking at. I hope that you guys really enjoyed the video. These are all of our ADCs. Give me some comments, give me some feedback. I know the way that fantasy usually turns out is not always the way that we expect it to turn out. With that said, there are a ton of calculations that go on behind the scenes for this. My co-host and I, Chris, we're both data analysts. We both work in the finance departments of our respective companies, and we look at numbers and pour through data and analyze all day. That's what we love to do. We also really love League of Legends. We love following the professional scene, and we love just chopping it up on Discord to very late hours about trading different players in our fantasy leagues, talking about who's better than who. This is awesome. Really happy to be putting out these videos. So give us some good feedback, and let me know how you ended up doing. I'm curious to see who's on your team, if you had a lot of these players starting or not. But that's what we got. That's the end of this video, and we will kick it over to support. Thanks for watching. Bye.